Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavataye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanahu Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In this Jagat, which we are struggling to understand, and which includes everything, there are three perspectives on anything. The gold ornaments, which one has personal, subjective opinions and views on. This is beautiful, this is chunky, this I don't like. It's a subjective assessment, subjective judgment. And that individual subjective judgment, subjective pronouncement of whatever the vastu it is that we are seeing, is pratibhasika. The gold, which is the perspective of the bullion trader, is vyavaharika. It is there. Almost everybody would see it as gold. Some people, crazy people might say something else. Somebody might say it's copper, but generally, you would have one viewpoint, which is it is gold, it is vyavaharika gold. And the reality is that gold is also only Advitiya Brahman. That is the Paramarthika perspective. Now you take anything, you will have all these three perspectives. The judgment we make about other living beings, I can't stand slithery snakes. The personal viewpoint. Whereas there are others, every now and then you see it on Animal Planet on TV. People who love snakes. The snake itself is vyavaharika, Ishvara Shaktam. But the snake is also non-separate from Brahman. Akhanda Brahman. The same snake which you see on the rope now becomes pratibhasika. Not everybody sees a snake. One fellow sees a snake, other fellow says there's no snake. You are making a mistake. The fellow who sees snake has all the symptoms of seeing a snake. If he doesn't like snakes, is afraid of snakes, you will get all the reactions. The rope, which is the adhisthana for the snake, is Ishvara Shashtam, vyavaharika. The rope is also same as Brahman. So this way you look at anything in this Jagat, everything has a subjective view depending on the individual's personality, experiences while growing up, inferences the person has drawn, the society own prejudices, the community's prejudices, the national thinking. And then there is the Vyavaharika view, which is what everybody can see as the basis for what happens in the Pratibhasika. Once a certain amount of jnanam comes, the snake that person sees on the rope and has all the reactions that he would have of seeing a Vyavaharika snake, same reaction, although it is Pratibhasika. When there is enough light of knowledge, he sees the snake as being only Pratibhasika and sees the rope as Vyavaharika. And that rope also, when Atmajnanam arises, is then seen as only Mithya Vyavaharika. With that jnanam, one can see only Brahman in anything. That is Irupadalam Irevane. Our famous statement. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. There, first we see in duality, everything here is Ishvara. And then, with exposure to the pramana, Shastra pramana, the Shabda pramana of the Shastra, with the help of a guru, that becomes real knowledge, because then by that time he understands that this Jagat that I've been discussing with all the mountains and rivers and feelings and thoughts and everything else also includes my Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira, which are also Jada. There is only one Chaitanyam. And that Chaitanyam is I. Aham Brahmosmi. Everything else is Jada. And that's where sometimes confusion comes. But I see a difference between living and non-living beings, living beings and non-living things. How can you say it's all Jada? Again, more vichara, one can see that the Jada Vastu, Sthula Sharira, and the Sukshma Sharira, which by themselves have no Chaitanyam, have to be somehow illuminated by an external Chaitanya. another Chaitanya. That is our Dṛg-dṛśya-viveka. That Drik, that Sakshi, Dṛgeva natu drishyate, is what illuminates everything. What makes everything come alive. This thought comes every time we see somebody close to us has died. Because we see the Sharira as Jada at that time. Then we remember all the scriptural words. Dust turn to dust. That everything goes back to the Panchabhutas. And many times we will declare to ourselves, I must find out what is the nature of this Chaitanyam which gave life to the Sharira, which is now lying as a Jada Sharira. Why am I giving so much importance to the Sharira? But Sharira is only Jada. And then he has a certain resolution, like a New Year resolution. I must find out. But like any new resolution, that resolution does not last very long. One gets sucked into the Vyavaharika life. One tells oneself, I must recognize the body for what it is, as non-I, ātmatattva, and therefore, I still don't know what I is, but I should have virakti towards this Sharira. There's a term that's used for this, smashana vairagyam. Till you come back from there, all these thoughts are going on in the head. This Sharira, on whom I had projected so many things. I liked his this bit, I didn't like his that bit. My judgments, everything goes into thin air. And that determination to find the truth lasts for a short time. What makes this difference? Why does individual Sharira, Sthula Sukshma Sharira, feel as if it is conscious? What makes it different from a stone? What made the Sharira before the death of the Sharira different from the Sharira that I'm now seeing as a Jadavastu? It is relatively easy to see that everything in this Jagat can be seen from the three perspectives of Pratibhasika, Vyavaharika, and with greater difficulty, Paramarthika. If I can see everything from a Vyavaharika perspective and understand everything is only Ishvara. That everything here is Ishvara Shrishtam. Whatever judgments, thoughts, feelings that I had expressed of any vastu in this Jagat is only a projection. Great step forward. We've been discussing some examples. It is easy to see Ishvara Shrishtam when you see something beautiful, something pleasing to the heart. Our classic example is the gurgle of a baby infant. A beautiful sunrise or a sunset. Sometimes you go to the beach and you see the vastness of the sea. One can do certain vichara and say, wow, Ishvara, you're great. To see great hope. Or you go to large, high, big mountains. It does something to you. One says, hey Ishvara, you're just super. But then to see the same Ishvara in a person who you think has wronged you is far more difficult. There our pratibhasika projection on other jivas takes over. There we are not able to go beyond the pratibhasikam and see Ishvara Shritta Vyavaharika Jagat. Because I am hurt. But if we look at the jiva itself, the jiva can also be seen from all the three perspectives. Individual jiva. From the pratibhasika perspective, from the vyavaharika perspective, and from paramarthika perspective. All are lit by Sakshi Chaitanyam. So in this second Anuvaka, the author looks at the jiva and says, is there a way I can understand the three perspectives when I look at a jiva? In the original text, it is not divided into a second Anuvaka. But Swami G says, assesses that this is another Anuvaka for two reasons. First, because with verse 31, the whole teaching is complete. What is this new thing? It is something different. And something which can cause more confusion. And secondly, because the writing styles are different. So the inferences that while the first 31 verses were written by one author, probably Vidyarani Muni, the second Anuvaka, 32 to 46, were composed by another author, probably Bharati Tirtha. So this second Anuvaka, starting from this verse, avachinna chidabhasa tritiyaha swapna kalpitaha vigneyas trividho jivaha tatradhya param. Let's read this verse. Avachinna chidabhasa
avachinna chidabhasah
tritiyah swapna kalpitaha
tritiya swapna kalpitah
vigneyas trividho jivaha
vigneyas trividho jivah
tatradhya paramarthikaha.
tattva.
The language is pretty simple. The meaning is also fairly easy to make out. So if you do the anvaya, it will become avachinna chidabhasa tritiyaha swapna kalpitaha. The three things: avachinna chidabhasa and swapna kalpitaha. Iti trividat jiva vigneyaha. To be known, vigneyaha. Tatra adhyaha paramarthikaha. Tatradhyaha paramarthikaha. The author talks about three viewpoints of looking at the jiva. That jiva which we see as individual, which looks so different from what Shastra has been telling us about Brahman, says you can look at it three ways. Threefold points of view of the jiva. We will take Chidabhasa first. Abhasa is reflection. Chit abhasa becomes Chidabhasa. Pratibimba. We have seen some examples in the past. One sun. Some objects reflect that sun. Some objects which are opaque do not reflect that sun. But that same sun reflected by different objects seems to take the character of the medium of reflection. If you have a finely polished mirror, the reflection of the sun in that mirror is pretty much true to the original. But if we have a warped mirror, you get a distorted image of the sun, because it takes on the character of the reflecting medium. If the reflecting medium was concave, like you have this hall of mirrors in these fairs and all, no? You go there, one mirror makes you look like a fat guy and short guy, one mirror makes you look like a tall, thin guy. Because the reflection takes on the characteristics of the reflecting medium. Another medium of reflection could be a pond of water. If the water is rippling, you get a different image. If the water is absolutely steady, you get a different image. If the water is dirty, it looks like the image is dirty. So we can see that this reflecting medium makes the original look different and individual. This Chidabhasa. There is only one Chit. There is only one Chaitanya. One Sat, which is Chit, which is Anantam, but appears as though there are many. Appears as though there are each individual Chaitanyam in living beings. And appears as though there is no Chaitanyam in Jadavastu. While the fact is that all of them are nothing but that Chaitanyam, it gives the appearance of many. And this Jiva, Chidabhasa Jiva, acquires properties of the reflecting medium. And what is the reflecting medium here? It is the Antakarana, Sukshma Sharira. Since these are different in different bodies, it looks as though there are many Chaitanya. And therefore opens it for differentiation. While there is a certain commonality, we look on them individually as individual Jiva. This Jiva is the one who can do vichara, who can aspire for moksha. Because he sees that there has to be a commonality, that there has to be something more than what he's able to see, that the difference is only apparent, that the differences come from the reflecting medium. I'm glibly using words like reflection, reflection medium, etc. But please remember, this is only a point of view. He can aspire for that knowledge, which is moksha. This Chidabhasa, the Jiva which looks at every other Jiva as created by Ishvara. Therefore, there is separate Ishvara as a Karanam. And there are multiple Jivas. He sees duality. And he sees the presence of Ishvara. This is one perspective of the Jiva, which he calls Chidabhasa. And later he will call it Vyavaharika. Then there's a second Jiva, which he calls Tritiya here. Second not second jiva, second perspective of jiva, second view of jiva. He says, swapna kalpita, swapnavat. That which is a projection by individuals. We saw yesterday that within the order of Ishvara, he is this swapna kalpita also. But this is individual projection. This is not easy to understand except for the fact that we have, fortunately, the swapna as an experience that everybody goes through. Where we project many individuals. But where, when it is resolved on waking up, we recognize the dreamer and the dreamer's knowledge as the only source of projection of this entire universe. Therefore, we can understand when we say Ishvara is a upadhana karanam as well as nimitta karanam for the jagat. This example, probably the only example that's available to us, comes in very handy. Because we have experience of Swapna, we can therefore understand how it is possible to create a whole jagat from only one abhinna nimitta upadhana karanam. Nothing has changed in the karanam because only projection. And it is individual projection. No two people dream the same. The same person does not dream the same thing again and again. Individual projection. Therefore, Swapna becomes a wonderful tool for us to understand this abhinna nimitta upadhana karana. And this karanam is non-changing. The upadhana karanam can be parinami upadhana karanam. It can undergo change and become something else. But here, the dreamer does not undergo any change. Ishvara does not undergo any change when this whole jagat is manifest. So it is not only abhinna nimitta upadhana karanam, but also one that does not change. The rope does not change to become the snake. Gold does not change to become a bangle or a chain, only in nama rupa. Swapna has another function, very interesting function. We come to this jagat with a sthula sukshma sharira. This sthula sharira undergoes experiences, some of which are very pleasant, some of which are not so pleasant. They are the playing out of the karma phala. This we can understand easily. But the same thing happens also in Swapna. While in the waking state, we can create more karma, in the Swapna, we can exhaust some of the karma, for which you need that particular sharira. You have a very pleasant dream. leaves you feeling good. You have a nightmare. I don't know why it's called a nightmare. But you have a horrible dream. You don't feel very good when you wake up. So it's also an exhaustion of karma phala. Now it's very easy to see that the jiva that is kalpita, which is projected as in sleep or dream, is mithya. It is there as long as it lasts. It is real as long as it lasts. But we know it is unreal. Or Maya characteristic walks on. It is real and not real. But what about Vyavaharika Jagat and Jiva? Vyavaharika Jiva is also mithya. Swami, this is all Ishvara Shrishtam. Yes, it is. But that's also mithya. That is also mithya because we get a jivatvam, the characteristics of that jiva, depending upon the medium of reflection. Ishvara also we give characteristics, attributes. Ishvaratvam. Even Ishvaratvam is mithya. We call Ishvara Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, omniscient, omnipotent. But that is also mithya. If we can cognitively separate Ishvaratvam from Ishvara, there is no duality. Ishvaratvam belongs to the mithya. Ishvara is non-separate from Brahman. I can say the same thing for Jiva. Jivatvam, all the limitations and characteristics that I've superimposed on the real Chaitanyam, because I'm looking at the Chidabhasa, and I can cognitively in my mind separate Jivatvam from Jiva, then I can see Jivatvam is part of the Mithya Jagat. That has come from the characteristics of the Mithya Upadhi. Mithya reflecting medium. But the Jiva which I have cognitively separated from Jivatvam is same as Brahman. Without recognizing this Chidabhasa Jiva gives importance only to the Jiva with all the characteristics which have been superimposed upon the Jiva, which have been borrowed from the reflecting medium, and thinks of himself as the center of the universe. I, this body, this mind, this senses, this thought, these feelings, is the most important locus, geocenter of this entire Jagat. and therefore conducts himself with that principle. But if you really understand that the pratibhasika jiva and the vyavaharika jiva are both mithya and lead to dvaitam, one can do more vichara. The author here says there's a third view of jiva, which you put first here. Avachinna jiva. Avachinna means endowed with, conditioned by, limited by, etc. Here the meaning is avachinna, parichinna. Parichinna is limited by. As though limited by, there's no limitation. Remember, yesterday we talked about the two-letter word called iva. Wherever you see that iva, you know what to talk about. That jiva which seems to be limited by ahankara and antakarana, which we studied in the earlier portion. Although in reality there is no avachinnam. How can there be avachinnam? Satyam Brahma is one order of reality. Ahankara and antakaranani are a different order of reality. How can something else in another order of reality limit that Chaitanya? Now you know why it is iva, as though. It is like, fortunately we have a very good example here also. Space being limited in this room by these walls. In the room that you are sitting in, is space limited by the walls? Only if you look at it from the perspective of the room of the walls. But the reality is, space cannot be divided. Elsewhere, Vidyarani Muni talks about ghatakasha. The akasha in a ghata. How can a ghata, a pot, limit the space, divide space? The walls which seem to limit space, the wall of the pot that seems to limit space, are also in space. So we have one very good example here also to understand this avachinna atma, avachinna jiva, avachinna atma. It is as though conditioned by, as though limited by certain upadhi. And we remember that these upadhis belong to the mithya jagat. They cannot in reality limit the limitless Brahman. So he says, avachinna chidabhasa. If you understand this avachinna as iva, then that is paramarthikam. And then chidabhasa is nothing to do with the real chit, only reflection, which cannot exist without the original. The original sun is not there. The multiple reflections we discussed, where are they? There are no multiple reflections. And tritiyaha swapna kalpitaha. So this swapna kalpitaha and vyavaharika chidabhasa are only points of view. The swapna kalpita is because it is seen from within the swapna. Vyavaharika is only seen from within vyavaharika. Avachinatma is seen, can be understood to be the limitless Brahman as though limited by ahankara and antakarana upadhi. Therefore, he says, these three are vigneyaha, is to be known, to be understood in this way. Vigneyaha trividho jivaha. Three ways of looking at jiva. Threefold perspective of jiva. Tatra adhyaha paramarthikaha. Adhyaha is the one that mentioned first in the verse, which is avachinatma. Because the avachinna is avachinna iva, parichinna iva. Is paramarthika. Here, paramarthika should be read as pradhanya, main one, the most important one. Because we have this problem, because as though limited by. That is the primary thing. Other two are only points of view, seen from within the swapna and within the vyavaharika jagat. So, avachinna chidabhasaha tritiyaha swapna kalpitaha vigneyas trividho jivaha tatra adhyaha, the first one, paramarthikaha is the main one. Other two are projections. One is Ishvara projection, Ishvara system. One is Manushya system, our own individual projections. The avachinna atma, as though it takes on the form of the three sharira. You can look at the avachinnattvam, parichinnatvam from the sharira, which means from the ahankara and antakaranani. And they're only as though limited. But there's a possibility of misunderstanding, saying all this time you've been telling us that the jiva and Brahman are the same. How can this jiva, which is limited, be equated to the Brahman, which is limitless? It doesn't sound right. It's an equation where the left-hand side and the right-hand side don't seem to match at all. It is like trying to say 13 is equal to 47 into 5. No match at all. A finite, limited jiva, you're saying, is the same as infinite, limitless Brahman. So this kind of doubt can arise because he's given those 3 points of view of the jiva, avachinna, chidabhasa, and swapna kalpita. All seem to be limited. How do you equate that to Brahman, which is limitless? So he takes the next verse. Take verse 33, please. Avacheda kalpita syat.
Avachhedah kalpita syat.
Avachedyam tu vastavam.
Avachhedyam tu vastavam.
Tasmin jivatmam aropat.
Tasmin jivattvamarupat.
Brahmatvam tu subhavatah.
Brahmatvam tu svabhavatah.
Avacheda kalpita syat. Avacheda is that which does the apparent limiting. And avachedyam, that which looks like it has been limited. To vastavam. Tasmin jivatvam aropat brahmatvam tu subhavatah. That which has been, which is avachedyam, on which we have superimposed the limitations coming from ahankara and antakaranani, making it as though limited. Therefore, multiple jivas. That jiva, how can you say is the same as Brahman, which is unlimited? So he says, avachedah kalpitasya. Hey, listen, this avachedanam, limitation, is only iva. There is no limitation. How can space be limited by the walls of a pot or a room? They cannot. At least in the case of space, the pot and the space belong to the same order of reality. Even there, fortunately, we have space as an example, which tells us that this parichinnam, limitation imposed on space, is only as though limitation. In the case of Brahman and ahankara, antakarana, they don't even belong to the same order of reality. Where is the question of any limitation imposed upon that limitless Brahman by something in a different order of reality? If you are hungry in a dream, only a dream food can satisfy the hunger. Whatever food you might have eaten before you went to sleep cannot satisfy that hunger. Similarly, the hunger in your waking state, you cannot say, I'm going to sleep and dream of food. Not going to satisfy your hunger. Different orders of reality. Here it is as though avachedah, it is kalpita. they belong to the order called Mithya. Whereas to avachedhyam, that which has been apparently limited, is vastavam. Vastavam is a word we use very commonly in Tamil also. For anything which is true, we say vastavam. Vastavam. That is an order of reality. The avachedaha is another order of reality. Therefore, that cannot limit this, not even like what limits space. Therefore, what happens? Although it is as though limitation, tasmin jivatvam aropat. Because it's as though limitation, the jivatvam, which belongs to ahankara, which belongs to the sharira, jivatman consists of all the limitations, is superimposed upon Brahman. That's why I said, if you take jiva and all the attributes which you can call jivatvam, all of which have come from this aropa, superimposition, and you can cognitively separate the jivatvam, the jiva that you have thus separated is Brahman. No guna. Therefore, this apparent parichinnatvam. Earlier we talked about tadatmya. Remember, you cannot separate them physically. It has to be only understood. That is why this whole knowledge of Satyam, including the knowledge of Ishvara, has only to be understood. There's no other way you can do it. Nanya pantya ayanaya vidyate. You cannot know oneself except through knowledge. A cognitive understanding of the nature of the jiva being the same as the nature of Brahman. And that this false superimposition of jivatvam, which is all mithya, superimposed by the mithya upadhi, and makes us think that I, this jiva, is limited. Powerful Shakti of Maya. It makes us not able to see the truth and makes us believe the mithya projection to be true. So he says, any doubt that you might have, you have to understand that Jiva and Brahman and Ishvara are non-different from each other. By sheer knowledge of understanding of the fact that Ishvara and Ishvaratvam, Jiva and Jivatvam, when seen correctly, and one can filter out the Ishvaratvam and filter out the Jivatvam, only Brahman. That Brahman I am. That Brahma sa Atma I. We will continue to talk about this verse in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.